When you picture World War II, you probably think of tanks rumbling across Europe, the roar of artillery, and skies swarming with fighter planes. But far beneath that chaos, another war was being fought. A quieter war. A war for survival. As bombs rained down from the heavens, ordinary families fled beneath the earth, into shelters, basements, and bunkers they built with their own hands. What began as fear quickly grew into one of the greatest survival efforts in human history. This is the forgotten world beneath World War II, where the ground itself became humanity's final defense. Governments across Europe issued desperate warnings. They knew the bombers were coming. In Britain, families were told, "Dig your shelters now." In Germany and the Soviet Union, citizens were ordered to build underground refuges, sometimes with little more than hand tools and hope. People dug beneath their homes, their gardens, and even public parks. They didn't wait for help. They created it. Entire communities transformed into construction crews overnight. Mothers mixed cement, fathers cut steel, and children carried buckets of earth. Every spadeful of dirt wasn't just labor, it was protection. A promise that their family might see another sunrise. In Britain, the Anderson shelter became a household icon. Simple, cheap, but life-saving. Made from curved steel panels, half buried in the ground and covered with soil, it could withstand the shock of nearby explosions. Families filled them with blankets, small stoves, and candles. The nights were long. Children slept through the sound of falling bombs while parents whispered prayers, hoping the next blast wouldn't be their home. Later came the Morrison shelter, placed indoors, a steel table strong enough to survive a ceiling collapse. Many lives were saved beneath those tables. Each shelter was a symbol of quiet courage, proof that resilience doesn't need armor, only will. Across Europe, the German people built on a massive scale. Their bunkers, or Luftschutzräume, were architectural marvels born of fear. Deep beneath Berlin, entire networks of tunnels stretched for miles. Some were so large they could shelter thousands of people, complete with air filtration systems, generators, and emergency hospitals, all hidden beneath the city. Families waited in these cold, concrete rooms for hours, sometimes days, while the world above them burned. For many, these bunkers became both sanctuary and prison, a place of safety wrapped in darkness. And when the bombings finally ended, the silence that followed was almost worse. In the Soviet Union, shelters were carved from necessity, not luxury. Old mines, basements, and subway tunnels became lifelines. In Moscow, the vast metro system transformed into a city beneath the city. Families slept between train tracks, babies were born underground, and schools were held by lantern light. In besieged Leningrad, civilians built makeshift bunkers from scrap metal and wood, defending themselves not just from bombs, but from starvation and despair. Even in those suffocating tunnels, hope remained. People sang, shared what little they had, and believed that someday they would see the sky again. In Japan, as the war neared its end, shelters took on a new form. Entire mountains were hollowed out to hide civilians, weapons, and even factories. Some were disguised beneath schools, temples, and gardens. Hidden air vents were built into wells, and secret tunnels connected escape routes through the hills. In some towns, entire families lived underground for weeks without seeing daylight. The air was thin, the space suffocating, but the destruction above was far worse. To survive meant to disappear, and Japan mastered that grim art. So what was it really like to live underground? Imagine the damp smell of soil, the flicker of a single candle, and the muffled explosions that shake the walls around you. Families played cards to distract their children. Neighbors became like family, sharing rations, jokes, and whispered prayers. Some shelters even had makeshift kitchens, libraries, and small chapels. People celebrated birthdays, mourned losses, and kept journals, turning fear into routine. In the darkness, they found community, and in that unity, they found strength. Today, most of these bunkers sit abandoned. Cracked walls, rusted ladders, and silent corridors, each one a frozen memory of those who once hid there. Urban explorers sometimes find relics: a child's toy, a faded poster, a rusted kettle, reminders of the lives that once clung to hope below the earth. They aren't just ruins, they are monuments to ordinary courage. The underground shelters of WWII weren't built by soldiers. They were built by bakers, mothers, miners, and school teachers, people who refused to give up. They remind us that survival is not about weapons or walls, but about unity, ingenuity, and determination. In every war and every crisis since, their message still echoes through the silence. Prepare, endure, rebuild. If you enjoyed uncovering this hidden side of WWII, don't forget to subscribe to Forgotten Survival, where history's forgotten stories come back to life. Because sometimes, the greatest battles are fought underground.